Which of the Ma'aseh HaTorah are laid on Gentiles? What did the Jerusalem Council decide? No sexual immorality. No ingesting blood. No, it doesn't say animal sacrifices. No, it's meat sacrificed to idols. That's right. Sorry, I misunderstood you. And no drunkenness. Now, drunkenness, you can argue, is the moral code. These three are part of the cult, or Ma'aseh HaTorah. Meat with blood in it is kosher. Those are laid on the Gentiles. How many of you are up for a great, rare steak? Don't raise your hand. How dare you? Don't eat meat that still has blood in it. How in the world did we ever get the idea that that doesn't apply to Christians? It was laid on Gentile believers very clearly. For all Gentiles, the only Jewish laws they need to keep are these. Honestly. Now, I'm not telling you a sinner if you eat rare steak. In our house, we do not eat meat with blood in it because God said don't. In the Old Testament, Leviticus 17, God says the life of a creature is in its blood. Now, we understand why God said that. In the ancient world, they noticed something very unusual. When a person's blood all runs out, they're dead. So they said, where's the soul? Where's the life? Well, it's in the blood. So the blood of a creature is its life. God said, that chicken you had for lunch, you know the price that thing paid for your lunch? A whole lot more than you did. That chicken gave its life for you to eat lunch. Show your respect for God and His creation and the chicken by not eating His blood. Honestly, you think that's... If we all did this, you wouldn't have a problem that we have with the crazies in the Humane Society, because people would respect life, animal or otherwise. So pour the blood in the ground and say, God, I bless you that you gave the life of this animal, so it'll change your whole thought about eating.
Well, this is like much more down to my ignorance, but isn't there like a verse in the Bible that says that the guys who occasionally eat the meat sacrificed to idols because we know?
Paul has to deal with two issues, and I know, I'll do the rabbi thing. That's an awesome question. If I get onto that question, I'm not going to finish what I need to share with you, so I'll hang around after. Okay? Bless you for understanding. Where would you put the Ten Commandments? Cult, moral, or Ma'aseh HaTorah, the works of the law? Moral. I knew somebody was going to take me there. This group is too good not to. I struggle with Sabbath. I struggle with Sabbath for two reasons. God created the seventh day as part of His rhythm for the creation. Show me where He changed His mind. If you could see the politics that went into moving Saturday to Sunday, you'd realize it was moved for political reasons and economic reasons, and then later they found theological justification. Now, I think God blesses people who keep Sabbath. Don't say when you go to church on Sunday you're keeping this, that you're on Sabbath. Sabbath in Hebrew means Saturday. But to say I'll keep Sabbath on Sunday, I think God blesses that, prefers people to have a day of rest. That's part of His rhythm. I am not convinced, to be honest, that He ever intended it to move from Saturday. Certainly there's nothing in the Bible that suggests they did. I know it says they met on the first day of the week, but it doesn't say they stopped meeting on the last day of the week. They added a day. Now, I'm not trying to talk you out of your tradition. If your tradition is awesome on Sunday, then join them as much as you possibly can. But I think that's one of the issues that the Christian church has to wrestle with yet. And when I was in Israel, we always kept Sabbath, on Sabbath. And maybe it's emotional, but I found a rhythm in that was really special. And part of it is that the whole society was doing it too. But good question. Did you have a second one? Okay. All right. Live the text. 3, teach the text. Everything a rabbi does is an attempt to teach the text. What I would guess would surprise most of you, I know it did me big time, is that almost all of Jesus' teaching is an attempt to interpret an Old Testament passage. Let me show you the classic example, because I think the Christian church has gotten this right but missed something. So I'm not going to criticize the traditional, but let me show you what happens if you put it in the Jewish setting. In Jesus' day, there are 7 schools of Pharisees. The very progressive, God is changing to meet the new environment, is Hillel. The Judean, the very let's not change anything at all, is Shammai. Shammai, Hillel. Jesus enters into the debates of the day. 7 times he takes Hillel's point. Once he takes Shammai's point. There were 8 great issues in the believers in Jesus' day, and lots of little ones. The great ones would correspond in our world to homosexuality, women pastors, worship style. You could think of some others. Creation versus evolution. It's that kind of a debate. One of them was, what is the greatest commandment? Why? Because the Jews noted that commandments can conflict with each other. Does the Bible say, don't work on the Sabbath day? Yes. Does the Bible say, if your neighbor's donkey falls in a hole, pull him out? Yes. What if the neighbor's, is that work? Ever pull a donkey out of a hole? I never did, but I think it sounds like work to me. What if the neighbor's donkey falls in a hole on the Sabbath day? Now, which commandment are you going to break? You're going to work on the Sabbath to pull the donkey out? Then you're breaking the Sabbath. Or you're going to leave the donkey because it's the Sabbath, now you're breaking the law to help the donkey. Which law will you break? You're going to have to break one. Unless you want to drag the donkey halfway out and say, but do you understand? You're breaking one. Am I wrong? So the rabbis had to decide which are the greater commandments, because some of them you can never break. Sometimes it's okay to break this one to keep this one. Now, let's do this math.
Is there a precedent that said because Jesus changed or added to the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God, and the second like it?
Okay? Right track. Go with me. Mr. Hillel, what's the greatest commandment? Easy, my son. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. That is the Shema. That's the great command. It never, ever, ever may be broken. Thank you, Mr. Hillel. What's the second commandment? Easy. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is pre-Jesus by 70 years. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the second? Yes. And third? Sabbath day. And fourth? Adultery. And fifth? Idolatry. Okay? Mr. Shammai, what's the greatest commandment? That's an easy one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Shema. And the second? Sabbath day. Do you mean I can't heal on the Sabbath day to love my neighbor? No, because the Sabbath day is a greater commandment than love my neighbor. Now, do you hear Jesus' debate about whether he can heal on the Sabbath day? It revolved around which is the greatest commandment. That's the first debate. The second debate was if we have to love our neighbor. Hillel says yes, it's number 2. Shammai actually put love your neighbor about number 18. But they both said love your neighbor. So the next logical question is, who's my neighbor? Mr. Shammai. Mr. Shammai, who's my neighbor? What do you think? A believing Jew, of course. An unbelieving Jew. Is he moral? Yeah. Of course, your neighbor. A pagan Jew? Not a chance. You don't have to love them. A Roman? Don't make me laugh. Of course not. They're not your neighbor. You don't have to love a Roman. Hate your enemies. They're God's enemies too. Mr. Hillel, who is my neighbor? What do you think? A believing Jew? Of course. An unbelieving Jew? Absolutely. A pagan Jew? They're in God's image. A Roman? They're a creature of the divine. A pagan Roman? Are they a creature of the divine? Yes. What about a Samaritan? Don't make me laugh. Samaritans aren't human. We all know this. You don't have to love a Samaritan. Now, here's Jesus. A young Talmud, your age, or younger, came up to him and said, Rabbi, what is the greatest commandment? What did Jesus say?